The imperial capital's crystalline spires caught the light of 3 setting suns, casting prismatic shadows across the execution grounds. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood on the elevated platform, her diplomatic uniform pristine despite 3 days of interrogation. The floating cameras of the Imperial Broadcasting Network circled like hungry predators, transmitting her final moments to every corner of the Galactic Empire. High above, the Emperor's observation pod gleamed gold against the purple sky. Through the transparent dome, Sarah could see the Empire's absolute ruler, a towering figure of ceremonial cybernetics and flowing platinum robes. He had expected her to break, to bow, to beg. Instead, she stood straighter. The neural dampeners they'd attached to her neck were good, but not good enough. Beneath her apparent serenity, Sarah's quantum neural implant, a secret innovation they hadn't detected, worked furiously. The dampeners blocked standard transmissions, but they couldn't stop the entangled particles connecting her consciousness directly to Earth's defense network. Transmission at 43%. Data packet includes Imperial fleet movements, bioapp on facilities, and Project Eclipse details. Keep stalling. Ambassador Chen. The Imperial Herald's voice boomed across the grounds. You have been found guilty of espionage, sedition, and the unforgivable crime of making direct eye contact with His Eternal Majesty. Do you wish to confess your crimes and beg for Imperial mercy? Sarah's lips curved into a subtle smile. I represent humanity, and we don't beg. We negotiate, we cooperate, and when necessary, we fight. But we never beg. The crowd of gathered Imperial nobility buzzed with outrage. Making them angry was part of the plan. The more attention focused on her defiance, the less likely they'd notice the quantum data stream hidden in the background radiation of her neural implant. Transmission at 67%. Encrypting proof of Imperial breach of peace accords. Your species' arrogance blinds you to your place in the natural order, the Herald continued. Earth is but one insignificant world among millions. The Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. We have turned stars into weapons and reshaped whole galaxies. What hope could humanity possibly have against such power? Sarah laughed, genuinely amused. The sound echoed across the suddenly silent execution grounds. You speak of power while understanding so little about it. Humanity spent its history fighting, adapting, and surviving. Every challenge made us stronger. Every conflict taught us something new. You've ruled for 10,000 years. We learned more in our last century than you have in all that time. Transmission at 89%. Adding final tactical assessments and defense vulnerabilities. The Emperor himself stood now, his cybernetic enhancements glowing with barely contained rage. Sarah met his gaze directly, another capital crime, and continued speaking. You thought we were naive when we eagerly joined your empire. You mistook our enthusiasm for weakness, our curiosity for foolishness. But while you watched us with amusement, we studied everything about you, every strength, every weakness, every flaw in your supposedly perfect system. Transmission complete. Earth Defense Network confirms receipt. The Herald raised his ceremonial staff. Your time for lies and treachery ends now, Ambassador. Any final words before your sentence is carried out? Sarah Chen took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. The cameras continued their silent broadcast, carrying her image to every world in the Empire. She knew that back on Earth, the Defense Council would be watching, waiting for the signal to initiate their response. Remember what makes us human, she said clearly, her voice carrying across the grounds and through the broadcasts. Remember that we face our challenges standing tall. Remember that we never stop learning, never stop growing, and never ever surrender what makes us who we are. The Herald's staff came down in a glittering arc. In the last microsecond before the quantum blade struck, Sarah's neural implant sent one final message. Execute Protocol Prometheus. The Empire had just made the biggest mistake in its 10,000-year history. They thought executing one human would break Earth's spirit. Instead, they had just lit the fuse that would burn their empire to the ground. Humanity was going to war. For 3 days after Ambassador Chen's execution, Earth went dark. Every interstellar communication hub fell silent. Trading ports shut down. Diplomatic channels closed. Human ships across Imperial space simply vanished, leaving nothing but empty docking bays and confused port authorities. The Empire celebrated what they saw as humanity's collapse into fear and disarray. They couldn't have been more wrong. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, in a chamber that didn't officially exist, Fleet Admiral James Rodriguez stood before the assembled UN Security Council. The holographic displays around them showed real-time feeds from ships and bases across 50 sectors of space. Ambassador Chen's final transmission contained everything we needed, Rodriguez said, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical displays. The Empire's quantum defense networks, their fleet positions, their classified weapons research, everything. The Chinese premier leaned forward. "And you're certain they haven't detected our preparations?" Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile. "The Empire's arrogance is our greatest advantage. They're so convinced of their technological superiority that they never considered we might have surpassed them decades ago." The holographic displays shifted, showing massive structures hidden in asteroid belts and beneath the surfaces of distant moons. The Shadow Fleet, humanity's secret insurance policy against Imperial betrayal. Ships unlike anything the Empire had ever seen, incorporating technologies that Imperial scientists had deemed impossible. 300 ships, Rodriguez continued, each equipped with our quantum drive systems. While the Empire's ships are limited to established FTL routes, ours can jump anywhere, instantly. Their sensors can't track us. Their weapons can't target us. And their shields, he paused for effect. Their shields might as well be paper. The Russian president's eyes narrowed. The economic strain of building this fleet in secret was calculated into every trade deal we made with the Empire. The EU chancellor interrupted. They thought they were exploiting us, demanding resources at preferential rates. In reality, we were converting those resources into weapons right under their noses. The room fell silent as the main display showed their primary target, the imperial capital itself, the same place where Sarah Chen had died 3 days ago. "The Empire believes they understand humanity," Rodriguez said quietly. "They've studied our official military capabilities, our documented technology levels. What they don't understand is that humanity learned to hide its true strength long ago. We show our enemies what we want them to see, while keeping our real power in reserve." The UN Secretary-General stood, her voice carrying the weight of every human civilization across history. "The vote stands at 192 in favor, 0 against. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth stands united. The resolution for war is passed." Rodriguez nodded to his communications officer. Across the galaxy, human ships emerged from their hiding places. The Shadow Fleet awakened. "Send the transmission," the Secretary-General commanded. In the Imperial capital, the Emperor himself was attending a celebration of Ambassador Chen's execution when every screen and holographic display suddenly activated. The image was simple, the United Nations logo, followed by a short message in Imperial Standard. "You thought you were teaching us our place in the galaxy. In reality, we were learning exactly how to tear your empire apart. Humanity sends its regards." Simultaneously, across 50 sectors of Imperial space, the quantum defense networks protecting vital military installations simply shut down. Imperial commanders stared in horror as ships they'd never seen before appeared inside their supposedly impregnable fortifications. The Shadow Fleet struck with surgical precision, using weapons that ignored Imperial shields completely. In the Himalayan command center, Rodriguez watched as the tactical displays lit up with confirmation after confirmation of successful strikes. "Send the second transmission," he ordered. Throughout Imperial space, the message repeated in every language of every species. The Empire executed one human diplomat. In doing so, they started a war with all of humanity. Watch carefully. This is what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. The silent storm had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Maya Patel stood on the bridge of the HSS Artemis, watching the tactical display as her ship's quantum sensors mapped the space around the Imperial stronghold Nexus 7. The massive space station had never fallen in its 1,000-year history. It would fall today. Battle group in position, her XO reported. All ships showing green on the neural sync. Maya nodded, feeling the familiar tinkle of the quantum neural interface, the same technology Ambassador Chen had used for her final transmission. Around her ship, 20 other vessels of the Shadow Fleet waited in quantum silence, invisible to Imperial sensors. "Access their defense grid," Maya ordered. Her tactical officer, a former professional gamer named Kevin Zhang, moved his hands through the holographic interface. Years of competitive gaming had given him reaction times and tactical awareness that outmatched any Imperial combat eye. "Security protocols cracked," Kevin reported with a grin. "They're still using the same quantum encryption algorithms they developed a century ago. Never saw a reason to upgrade them." Maya allowed herself a small smile. Execute Phase 1. Across Nexus 7, every warning system suddenly blared to life. Imperial commanders rushed to battle stations as their sensors detected massive fleet movements approaching from all vectors. Defensive ships moved to intercept, weapons charged. But there was nothing there. "Phantom Fleet deployed," Kevin confirmed. "Their entire defense force is chasing sensor ghosts." The real attack began without warning. The Shadow Fleet dropped their quantum cloaks simultaneously, appearing inside the station's defensive perimeter. Imperial gunners froze in shock. Their weapons were pointing the wrong way, engaging phantom targets while real human ships materialized practically on top of them. "All ships, initiate combat protocols," Maya transmitted. "Remember the simulations." The Shadow Fleet moved with impossible precision. Every ship seemed to anticipate not only enemy movements, but also their fellow human vessels' reactions. Their neural-linked crews functioned as single organisms, executing maneuvers that Imperial tactical doctrine declared physically impossible. On the station's command deck, Imperial Admiral Vershiak watched in horror as human ships performed what his tactical training insisted were suicidal maneuvers. They flew directly through overlapping fields of fire, somehow knowing exactly where each energy beam would be and slipping through gaps that shouldn't have existed. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His tactical officer's voice shook. "Sir, these maneuvers, they match patterns from human entertainment software. They're using combat techniques developed in their virtual gaming systems." Maya watched as Kevin orchestrated their attack using modified versions of strategies he'd developed in competitive gaming tournaments. The Empire had dismissed human gaming as childish entertainment. They never realized those games were sophisticated combat simulators, training millions of potential pilots and tacticians. "Station's primary shields are down," Kevin reported. "Moving to Phase 2. The Shadow Fleet's formation shifted, taking positions that seemed random until viewed in four-dimensional spacetime. Each ship became part of a vast quantum array, their combined energy focusing on a single point. "Sir," Vershiak's sensor officer screamed. "They're creating some kind of temporal distortion." Maya touched her neural interface. "All ships, synchronize quantum fields." Fire. The combined energy of 20 Shadow Fleet vessels fired simultaneously, their beams intersecting at a precisely calculated point in spacetime. The fabric of reality itself seemed to twist. A sphere of pure darkness expanded outward, engulfing Nexus 7's outer defensive rings. When it cleared, the station's primary weapon systems, shield generators, and command and control nodes had simply ceased to exist. They hadn't been destroyed. They had been surgically removed from spacetime itself. "Signal the ground teams," Maya ordered. "Station is prepped for boarding." As Imperial forces surrendered en masse, Maya recorded a message for Earth Command. "Operation Prometheus successful. The Empire's strongest fortress fell in 17 minutes to a fleet 1/10 the size of its defensive force. Our casualties? 0. She paused, then added, "Tell the families of those who died with Ambassador Chen. The bill has come due, and we're collecting with interest." The Empire was learning a harsh lesson. They had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war, but humanity had transformed it into a science. Grand Admiral Excelthar stood aboard the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Eternal Dominion, watching as his world-breaker fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 10,000 ships strong, each vessel a masterpiece of Imperial engineering perfected over millennia. This fleet had destroyed 17 civilizations that had dared to resist Imperial rule. Humanity would be the 18th. Curious, his tactical officer noted. No defensive fleet at the system's edge. Scans show their orbital installations around Mars and Jupiter are minimally armed. Zelthar's cybernetic eyes narrowed. The humans had proven surprisingly capable, yet they'd left their home system virtually undefended. Move to combat formation Delta. Prepare tow. Sir, his sensor officer's voice cracked. Gravitational anomaly detected. The space between Mars and Jupiter rippled. Hundreds of asteroids suddenly changed course, their surfaces splitting open to reveal massive weapon arrays. The belt wasn't just a collection of rocks, it was a carefully orchestrated defensive line. "Impossible," Salthar whispered. They moved the entire asteroid belt. In her command center inside Sarah's base, General Sarah Wong watched the Imperial fleet's approach. They took the bait. Execute Operation Solar Storm. The seemingly abandoned orbital platforms around Mars powered up, revealing themselves as sophisticated sensor decoys. The real defense platforms emerged from concealment behind Jupiter's largest moons, their quantum targeting systems already locked onto the Imperial fleet. Interesting approach, Wong's tactical advisor mused, his AI interface glowing. They're using standard Imperial invasion formation, exactly like the historical records Ambassador Chen transmitted. Wong nodded. They've used the same tactics for 10,000 years. Why change what's always worked? She keyed her command channel. All units, execute pre-planned responses. Let's show them why adaptation matters. The Imperial fleet advanced in textbook formation toward Mars. Their sensors showed minimal resistance, just a scattered collection of defensive satellites and asteroid-based weapons. Their tactical computers calculated a 99.9% chance of victory. Those computers hadn't been programmed to consider human ingenuity. "Sir," Zelthar's navigator called out, "we're detecting unusual radiation from the Jogian moons." Before he could respond, space itself seemed to twist. The human engineers had spent decades studying how Imperial ships navigated in hyperspace. Now they put that knowledge to use, creating artificial gravitational corridors that forced the Imperial fleet to either change course or risk their ships being torn apart. Evasive action, Selthar ordered, but it was too late. The Imperial fleet found itself being herded into killing zones pre-sighted by human weapons. Each attempted maneuver was met with a countermeasure specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses in Imperial tactical doctrine. Direct hit on Sector 7, his damage control officer reported. They're using some kind of focused solar energy weapon. Wong watched as the arrays built inside Mercury's orbit activated, using the sun itself as a power source. Imperial shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, couldn't handle the sheer volume of concentrated solar radiation. "Status report," she commanded. Her eye advisor's hologram flickered. Enemy fleet has lost 23% of their ships. Their formation is breaking down. They're attempting to regroup using classic Imperial counter-defense pattern 3. Just as the simulations predicted, Wong opened a channel to the defense grid. Activate the Io array. Let's add some chaos to their equations. Jupiter's moon Io, already the most geologically active body in the solar system, had been transformed into a massive gravity weapon. Energy pulses fired from its surface, creating localized space-time distortions that played havoc with Imperial targeting systems. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Selphar watched in growing horror as his perfect formation disintegrated. Every Imperial tactic was met with a precise counter-tactic. Every standard response led them into another trap. "Fall back," he ordered. "Regroup at the system edge end." "Sir." Quantum surge detected from Earth's moon. The lunar surface cracked open, revealing humanity's greatest defensive weapon, a quantum phase inverter that could temporarily shift matter into parallel dimensions. A third of the Imperial fleet simply vanished, trapped between dimensions. In her command center, Wong sent a message to Earth Defense Command. "The Empire's World Breaker fleet just learned why you don't attack a species that turned its entire solar system into one giant defense mechanism. Phase 1 complete. Awaiting orders for Phase 2. The Empire had brought overwhelming force. Humanity had brought overwhelming innovation. The difference was proving decisive." Dr. Emily Chang never expected to fight a war from her artificial intelligence research lab at MIT. Yet here she was, surrounded by holographic displays, showing real-time battlefield data from across the galaxy, leading a team of scientists and engineers in humanity's most ambitious AI project. "Neural pattern analysis complete," her assistant called out. "The Empire's fleet movements near Proxima Centauri match historical records with 98.7% accuracy." Emily smiled, watching as her predictive algorithms processed centuries of Imperial tactical data. They really never change their strategies, do they? Upload the latest patterns to the defense grid. The lab, once dedicated to developing AI for medical research, had been transformed into a combat prediction center. Screens showed dozens of battles happening simultaneously across space, each one feeding more data into their evolving algorithms. In orbit above Earth, aboard the newly commissioned HSS Turing, Commander David Santos received the latest update from MIT. His ship's quantum AI core integrated the new combat predictions instantly. "They're about to execute a pincer movement," he announced to his bridge crew. Standard Imperial doctrine when facing a numerically inferior force. His tactical officer, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, formerly a climate modeling specialist, grinned as she manipulated the holographic controls. "Executing counter-maneuver now." The Turing moved in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine, its AI core using strategies derived from everything from chess games to fluid dynamic simulations. The Imperial ships, trying to follow their 1,000-year-old tactical manuscripts, found themselves outmaneuvered by a ship that treated space warfare like a complex mathematical equation. Back on Earth, in what used to be a social media company's headquarters in Singapore, Lieutenant Jennifer Lim led a different kind of battle. Her team of data analysts and former content moderators had repurposed viral detection algorithms to track Imperial intelligence operations. "Got another propaganda pattern emerging," one analyst reported. "They're trying to spread fear about human tech being unstable." Jennifer nodded, her augmented reality interface highlighting connection patterns across the galactic information networks. Deploy the counter-narrative. Show them what human tech can really do. Within hours, the Imperial propaganda was overwhelmed by actual combat footage, showing the precision and control of human weapons. The Empire couldn't understand how their carefully crafted narrative had been undone so quickly. They didn't realize they were fighting against algorithms that had spent decades learning to combat misinformation on Earth's social networks. In London, at the Royal Institute of Gaming Sciences, a facility that had raised eyebrows when it was founded 10 years earlier, Professor Marcus Wilson watched as his students ran combat simulations. The Empire's still using geometric formation patterns, he noted, watching a real battle through their gaming interface. "Show me how you counter it." His students, many of them former professional gamers, manipulated the simulation controls with practiced ease. Their suggested tactics were uploaded directly to the fleet, where AI systems would analyze and implement the most effective strategies. The Empire's military leadership couldn't comprehend how their forces were being consistently outmaneuvered, They didn't understand that every human ship captain had access to tactical suggestions from millions of gamers who had spent their lives thinking about how to counter predictable opponents. In orbit around Jupiter, Dr. Emily Chang received a priority transmission from Fleet Command. The Empire was gathering its forces for another major offensive. "They're adapting," her AI reported, showing a 12% deviation from standard tactics. Emily actually laughed. "Only 12%. Upload the complete analysis to all fleet AIs. Let's show them what real adaptation looks like." As she worked, a message from her counterpart at the Gaming Institute flashed across her screen. "Got some interesting new strategies from a 16-year-old in Brazil. You're going to love this." The Empire had spent millennia building the galaxy's most powerful military force, but they were learning the hard way that they were fighting an enemy who had turned warfare into a collaborative science project, combining insights from fields they had never even considered relevant to combat. This wasn't just a war of ships and weapons. It was a war of innovation, where every human skill, every field of study, every hobby and passion became another tool to ensure victory. Dr. Raj Patel stood in the heart of the Quantum Communications Center beneath the Indian Ocean, watching as streams of entangled particles connected human ships across thousands of light years. The technology had existed long before first contact. Humanity just never mentioned it to their imperial friends. Quantum coherence at 99.99%, his systems analyst reported. The entire fleet is synchronized. Through the quantum network's holographic interface, Raj could see every human ship in the galaxy simultaneously. Distance had become meaningless, while imperial ships relied on light-speed communications and prearranged protocols. Human vessels could coordinate their actions instantly across any distance. "Status update from Strike Group 7, his communications officer called out. "They're in position near the Imperial core worlds." Raj nodded, his neural implant processing the quantum data streams. "Send the signal. Operation Looking Glass is go." Across the galaxy, aboard the HS Hawking, Captain Sofia Martinez watched as her quantum sensors mapped an Imperial supply fleet's planned route. The Empire's ships would drop out of hyperspace in exactly 20 seconds, following the same patrol pattern they'd used for centuries. "All ships, synchronize quantum fields," Sofia ordered. "Prepare for parallel strike." The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace exactly on schedule. Their sensors showed empty space around them. They had no way of knowing that Sofia's strike group was operating on a quantum level that Imperial technology couldn't detect. "Execute," Sofia commanded. 20 human ships fired simultaneously from different points in space, their weapons synchronized through quantum entanglement. To the Imperial fleet, it appeared as if they were being hit from every direction, at once by weapons that simply appeared out of nowhere. In the Quantum Communication Center, Raj watched the battle through the quantum network. "Fascinating," he murmured. "Their shields are adapting, but they're still treating each attack as a separate incident. They don't understand it's all one coordinated strike." The Imperial Admiral aboard the supply fleet's flagship was desperately trying to make sense of the attack. His tactical doctrine had no protocol for enemies that could coordinate perfectly across vast distances with zero communication delay. "Status report," he demanded. His tactical officer's voice shook. "Sir, they're moving in perfect synchronization. Every time we adapt to one attack pattern, they all change simultaneously. It's like fighting a single entity spread across multiple ships." Back on the Hawking, Sofia received quantum data from 3 other battle groups engaging Imperial forces in different sectors. Through their shared quantum field, every human ship could learn and adapt from every engagement in real time. "They're launching their new electronic warfare suite," her tactical officer reported. "Trying to jam our communications." Sofia smiled. "Let them try to jam quantum entanglement." The Imperial jammers, designed to disrupt conventional communications, had no effect on the quantum network. The Empire's electronic warfare experts were baffled. Their most sophisticated jamming technology might as well have been trying to stop a river by shouting at it. In the Quantum Communication Center, Raj received a priority alert. The Empire was gathering a massive fleet for a desperate counterattack. They're finally starting to realize what they're up against, he noted. But they're still thinking in terms of ships and weapons. They don't understand that we're not just fighting a war. We're rewriting the fundamental rules of warfare itself. He opened a quantum channel to all human forces. The Empire is mounting a major offensive. They'll be expecting us to either mass our forces for defense or scatter for survival. Instead, we're going to show them something new. Through the quantum network, every human ship received detailed instructions simultaneously. The plan was so complex, so precisely coordinated, that it would have been impossible to execute without quantum communication technology. As the Imperial Armada prepared for battle, they had no way of knowing that their human opponents were operating as a single unified consciousness, sharing information and responding to threats faster than the speed of light itself. The Empire had brought overwhelming force to the battle. Humanity had brought technology that made the very concept of distance obsolete. The galaxy was about to witness warfare on a whole new quantum level. Professor Elena Torres walked through the newly established Galactic Exchange Center in Geneva, watching as students from 30 different species attended lectures on human history, science, and culture. The Empire had expected Earth to turn xenophobic after the war began. Instead, humanity had opened its universities to the galaxy. "Professor," a Centaurian student called out, their crystalline form shimmering with excitement, "I've been studying Earth's historical wars. Your species consistently turned enemies into allies through cultural exchange. Is that why we're here?" Elena smiled. "We're here because knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. The Empire's greatest weakness isn't their technology. It's their belief that power comes from keeping others in the dark." In orbit above Mars, Fleet Captain Michael Chen supervised as engineers from formerly Imperial worlds learned to maintain quantum drive systems. The Empire had kept their subject species dependent on Imperial maintenance crews. Earth's approach was radically different. "The quantum harmonics are tricky," a Proximan engineer noted, their tentacles delicately adjusting the drive's crystals. "But your teaching methods are innovative." Michael nodded. "We learned long ago that the best way to advance is to share knowledge freely. Every species brings unique perspectives that improve the technology for everyone." His comm unit chimed. A massive Imperial fleet had just attacked a civilian research station in the Orion sector. But instead of finding easy prey, they encountered ships from 12 different species, all equipped with human quantum shields and weapons. "Looks like those engineering classes are paying off," Michael commented, watching the battle data. The Imperial forces were being systematically dismantled by ships using human tactics combined with unique abilities from various species. In the diplomatic court headquarters in Singapore, Ambassador Aisha Rahman coordinated with representatives from former Imperial worlds. The holoscreen showed real-time updates as more systems declared independence from the Empire. "The Arcturus cluster has voted for autonomy," her AI assistant reported. "Their defense forces are already being integrated into the joint fleet." Aisha studied the strategic display. The Empire's territory was shrinking daily, not through military conquest, but through the simple act of sharing knowledge and encouraging self-determination. "Send them the standard technology package," she ordered, "and add priority access to the medical database. Their population suffered under Imperial restrictions on healthcare." A priority alert flashed across her screen. Imperial forces were attacking the Vega trading hub, trying to prevent more systems from accessing human technology. But the defense was being led by ships from former Imperial worlds, their crews trained in Earth's academies. In deep space, aboard the HSS Unity, Admiral James Chen watched as a joint human-alien task force engaged the Imperial attackers. The Unity's quantum sensors picked up communications between the Allied ships in dozens of languages, all coordinating perfectly through human quantum networks. "They're using a hybrid formation," his tactical officer noted. "Human quantum tech combined with Proximan maneuverability and Centaurian energy weapons. The Empire has no protocol for this." James smiled. Ambassador Chen would have been proud to see this. Species that once feared each other now fighting side by side, sharing technology and tactics that made them stronger together than they ever were alone. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving requests for assistance from 3 more Imperial systems. Their populations are demanding independence." The Empire had spent millennia keeping their subject species divided and dependent. They never imagined that humanity would simply give away the tools of independence, trusting that free people would choose to be allies rather than subjects. In Geneva, Professor Torres concluded her lecture on human history. A Rigelian student raised their hand, compound eyes glowing with curiosity. "Your species knew war was coming," they said. "You could have built weapons in secret, hoarded technology, and struck back alone. Why choose this path instead?" Elena's answer was simple: because humanity learned long ago that real victory isn't about defeating your enemy. It's about transforming them into friends. The Empire thought they were fighting Earth's military. Instead, they're fighting an idea. That knowledge shared makes everyone stronger. The Empire had started this war expecting to crush one defiant species. Instead, they found themselves facing a galaxy awakening to new possibilities, united not by force, but by the simple human principle that the best way to build a lasting peace was to lift everyone up together. 1 year after Ambassador Sarah Chen's execution, the Imperial Palace's Grand Throne Room had been transformed into the inaugural chamber of the Galactic Alliance, where the Emperor once sat alone in cybernetic splendor. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in a circular arrangement that emphasized equality. Dr. Raj Patel stood at the podium, his quantum neural interface connecting him to similar chambers on thousands of worlds where billions watched this historic moment. The Empire's last holdouts had surrendered not to military force, but to the overwhelming tide of social and technological change that humanity had unleashed. "The war is over," he announced, his words translated instantly through quantum networks into every language in the galaxy. "But our real work is just beginning." In the audience, Captain Sofia Martinez sat next to a former Imperial admiral who had defected after witnessing humanity's approach to warfare. His cybernetic enhancements had been repurposed for peaceful scientific research. "You knew this would happen," the former admiral said quietly. "From the moment the Empire executed Ambassador Chen, this was your true strategy." Sophia smiled. "The Empire thought they were fighting a war for dominance. We were fighting for transformation. Every battle was also a demonstration, showing the galaxy a different way of existing." Above the chamber, the HSS Chen, named for the ambassador whose sacrifice had sparked the change, maintained orbit alongside ships from 50 different species. Its quantum sensors monitored space for thousands of light years in every direction, sharing data freely with all Alliance members. Commander David Santos stood on the Chen's bridge, watching as merchant ships from former Imperial worlds used human quantum drive technology to establish new trade routes. The Empire's restricted trade corridors were being replaced by an open network of commerce and cultural exchange. "Signal from the Arcturus sector," his communications officer reported. "Their first quantum research facility is online. They're already suggesting improvements to the base design." David nodded. Just as humanity had predicted, giving away technology had led to innovations they would never have discovered alone. Every species brought unique perspectives that enhanced the shared knowledge pool. Back in the Alliance chamber, Professor Elena Torres presented the final draft of the Galactic Education Initiative. Under the Empire, knowledge had been rationed and controlled. The new alliance would make education freely available to every sentient being. In memory of Ambassador Chen, Elena began, "Who believe that understanding bridges all divides, we commit ourselves to sharing not just technology, but wisdom. Every discovery, every breakthrough, every lesson learned will be available to all." The Imperial Palace's ancient quantum cores, once used to monitor and control subject worlds, had been reprogrammed to serve as the backbone of a galactic library system. The same network that had maintained Imperial oppression now spread knowledge that set people free. In a quiet corner of the chamber, Fleet Admiral James Rodrigues met with military leaders from across the Alliance. The combined fleet would serve not to dominate, but to protect and explore. The Empire's weapons research facilities have all been converted, a Proximan commander reported. The scientists are particularly excited about combining their particle physics knowledge with human quantum theory. James smiled. That's the real victory, turning the machinery of war into tools for progress. As the ceremony concluded, Dr. Patil activated a special quantum link. Throughout the galaxy, holographic monuments sprang to life on every world that had been touched by the war. Each displayed the same image: Ambassador Sarah Chen, standing proud in her final moments, alongside her last words. "Remember what makes us human." But now those words meant something different. They had become a reminder not of defiance, but of possibility, of the unique human gift for turning enemies into friends, for sharing rather than hoarding power, for finding strength in diversity rather than conformity. The Empire had executed one human diplomat, expecting to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. Instead, that act had sparked a revolution not of weapons, but of ideas. Where the Empire had built walls, humanity had built bridges. Where the Empire had hoarded knowledge, humanity had shared it freely. And in the end, it wasn't humanity's superior technology or tactical brilliance that had won the war. It was the simple, powerful truth that Ambassador Chen had died protecting. Real strength comes not from dominance, but from our capacity to lift each other up. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had been fighting for.